Good morning, everybody, and good evening. I know some of you are joining, including one of our speakers from, I was about to say far away. Where they are, it's not far away. Britain is far away. Anyway, good morning, good evening, welcome from wherever you are. This is the third workshop of the Design and Policy Network, and today's topic is Democracy, Design and Public Policy. My name is Lucy Kimbell. I'm a Professor of Contemporary Design Practices at Central St Martin's, University of the Arts, London. And I'm a Principal Investigator of this research network that's funded by the UK Arts and Humanities Research Council. And the purpose of our network is to bring together researchers from design, the humanities, political science, with practitioners working inside and outside of government with a shared interest in public policy design, institution design, service design, and designing more generally. As you may know, we have a LinkedIn group associated with this. We'll put the details in the chat. It currently has 483 members, which is quite extraordinary. And we did have, as I said, 215 people sign up for this event, demonstrating quite a lot of interest in these very important topics. The LinkedIn group is the best place to go. Of course, not everybody is on LinkedIn, so there are very occasional emails as well. And if you're not on the email list, put your details in the chat and we will endeavour to add you. We also have a collaboration with the UK Civil Service policy design community, and so all of our events are written up on the blog, and my colleague Professor Anna Witcher from Cardiff Metropolitan is writing up today's event. Our network aims to do something quite simple, is to bring together those communities I mentioned through 4 workshops, of which this is the third. Alongside this, we are already producing some academic outputs shared at the Design Research Society last year and at the upcoming Political Studies Association in April, and then heading towards producing a report for the UK Research and Innovation Organisation, civil service and other stakeholders. So this is predominantly about research, but there's obviously close intersections with practice and those in different forms of practice who are interested in research and bringing research into their work. So we call this a workshop because we want to do some work, and our aim today is to better understand the intersections between design and democracy. On the one hand, maybe design practices and expertise and approaches can help democracy. Democratic institutions and processes didn't magic out of nowhere. They were to some extent intentionally designed, but there's opportunities to redesign them, and certainly that's an area of work that many practitioners and researchers are involved in. But on the other hand, democratic design thinking also has the potential to challenge design approaches and assumptions and suggest or demand new forms of design. And although there's been extensive work since the 1980s on participation in designing and recognizing the political contexts and consequences of designed things in the world, perhaps there's more to learn from other democratic values outside of participation, and to learn from democratic innovations and study. So our 3 speakers today will help us understand some of these questions. The format we're going to use over the 2 hours, we'll have provocations of 10 minutes each from each of the 3 speakers, who I will introduce you to in a moment. Then we'll have a Q&A and discussion, and I'll invite questions from in the chat. And Gabriele, my colleague, will keep an eye on the chat and draw my attention to anything I might have missed. And also feel free to raise a question by raising your hand using the Zoom functionality and speak your question yourself. After about an hour of that discussion, the presentations and the discussion, we'll have a short comfort break. Then after a quick briefing, we invite you to go into breakout rooms, which are basically randomly assigned just to give people a chance for small group discussion with 2 questions, which we will share with you later. And then we'll come back together for a plenary. So that's the overall format for today. We will be video recording the first part, and those video clips will then be shared online, so you'll have access to them later. And we'll also be taking notes by hand in the breakout rooms so that we can share, make use of some of those perspectives and make those available later. So introductions in the order of our speakers today. Our first speaker is Greig. She co-founded MakeGood in 2009, bringing her architectural background into questions of participation and social change. And MakeGood is an organisation that works with local authorities and community groups to enable hands-on thinking, collaborating and contributing, so different forms of participation in change. Our second speaker is Professor Michael Saward, who's Professor of Politics and International Studies at the University of Warwick. He's written and co-edited several books, including on democratic representation and performance in politics. But we invited him because of his most recent book, Democratic Design, which looks at the demands and the challenges facing those who look to design or redesign democracy in the name of participation and other democratic values. And then our third speaker is Professor Joyce Yee. Joyce is Professor of Design and Social Innovation at the University of Northumbria. She's a design researcher working on design and social innovation and service design. And her books include one on transformation, so roles that designers and design practices take to drive change, and one on design transition. So very much charting how something that we use the word design for is not fixed, it itself is changing. And she'll be sharing today some of perspectives from her recent work in the Asia Pacific region, throwing up some questions about how design and social innovation activity are possible or less possible or necessary in different kinds of political contexts. So that's the overall plan for today. Please share questions in the chat, introduce yourself if you'd like to. And I'm now going to hand over to our first speaker, Catherine, who's going to speak for 10 minutes.
Thank you, Lucy. I'm just going to share some slides. Okay, so good morning, everybody. It's really exciting to see so many people here. I'm going to talk about this, as Lucy said, from a practitioner perspective. So initially, I'm going to run through some things which you might think are blindingly obvious, but actually one of my key points here is that a lot of the design work that we do that has an impact on democracy and participation is actually predicated on really good clienting. So, we can have whatever aims it is that we want to do, but without the client will behind us, the stuff becomes quite meaningless. So my basic answer to this is yes, absolutely. I'm going to say that. I'm a designer. I like beautifully designed things. But how? I think there's a baseline of work that you can do around participation, around democracy, that kind of works with a category of people who already have an incredible sense of agency, in which case design is not necessarily drawing them in or improving participation. You could do something that is really badly designed and they're going to participate, or you could do something really beautifully designed, they're going to participate, and it doesn't make a difference. But actually, for people who don't have that sense of agency, design is really important. So it can make things really inviting, whether it's like, oh, I want to touch that, I want to play with that, I want to pick that up and feel it. Is it hands-on? Are we collaging and drawing and doing things in a way that's a little bit different? It can make it really playful. Actually, one of the things that I find quite surprising is that the end of something, when people say, I actually enjoyed that, their notion of being involved, their notion of sharing their opinion is that it isn't going to be enjoyable. So design can have a really important role to play to make it enjoyable. It can give something to do together. This comment of, I like that it wasn't just the same people talking for ages. Democracy or participation can feel like that sometimes, that there are people who are incredibly articulate, amazing at voicing their opinions. That's great for them. But then what about the people who don't thrive in that environment or don't have that same sense of agency? And actually kind of democratizing the process so that there's an activity that everybody has to participate in or can contribute to, and you can do it in a verbal way or in a written way. You can do it in private on your own and write something or say it to something. And actually it can just take those feelings of nervousness out of the situation. It helps us to unpack the problem before jumping to the solutions. So often when we think about change, we think about participation in change, we're straight away going all the way to the kind of, oh, it could be this or it could be that. But actually design is a method of looking at the design process to say, we're not going to jump straight to something. First of all, we're going to unpack what the problem is, tell us about this space. And actually that notion of people thinking, I don't think I'd actually have anything to add to this, but I do know this. I am an expert in this place, in this experience, in this community, in this like kind of network of people or whatever it is. Like we all have a lived experience about which we are completely expert, and actually unpacking that and collecting it through design processes is incredibly impactful. It can prompt new people to get involved. So you know, we do a lot of hands-on stuff, and have, you know, we've over lockdown kind of started sending packs of things to people for them to participate online, and included kind of herbs within that or something sensory to actually shift it away from everything is about an exchange of letters or exchange of writing. So something that awakens all of your senses, because we're not just designing things or thinking about design from a single sensory perspective. But, and this is the huge but that I would like to say, is that without action or influence, design just masks poor democratic processes. We do a lot of work that results in an image like I'm showing here, and we will only work on projects where there is meaningful influence. But I know that sometimes at the beginning of something, when we're pitching, I might start to feel uncomfortable when I realize like actually what people want is this type of imagery of like people having fun and coming together and it looking like the, you know, communities are involved. And I'm very aware that actually sometimes the photography of our work and the positioning of that photography put in a different context with different words around it with a different title can be used to evidence something that perhaps the process wasn't, or often the process wasn't. So actually allowing people to tell their own stories of the work, of the activity, of the outputs of what that participation led to. And that really is about democratizing the storytelling as well as the process. So politicians, clients, design teams have to really want to act on the findings. You know, we've done a lot of work with young people and getting young people involved in shaping their neighborhood. And one of the things that is, I always say to clients is that you want this because of course you are politically going to think it's important to listen to young people. And again, the photography of like, okay, so there's some young people in a room and they're pinning stuff up and they're talking and they're passionate. But are you listening? Because there has to be action beyond the moment of participation. Also, design can just be too much of a novelty. It can be confusing and take focus away from the actual conversation. So we have absolutely run activities where people at the end are like, I didn't really get what I was meant to do. So you can get really carried away with a really beautiful kind of notion of a game, and it's going to be really playful. But if it's too confusing, then it's just a big old barrier to participation, because people don't know what it is that you're asking them and what the point of that is. Certain types of design can feel really exclusionary. So I didn't want to smash down anyone else's work. So I chose a picture of a gallery here in the way that I would say it's quite equivalent, that sometimes that sense of threshold. So who can and can't go into a space, who can and can't. We have democratic spaces where everybody feels that they can come in and their voice can be heard. We spend a lot of time as an organisation thinking about the types of spaces that we're running activities in. We often have our own residency spaces on estates that we're working in, and thinking about the design and the atmosphere in those. And, that people thinking, I didn't think it was aimed at me, so they're not going to participate. And that importance of creating spaces ourselves. And again, it comes to clients as saying, we can create this space, but you also need to think about, what are you wearing when you rock up? Like, what are the signals that you are giving to people that you are an outsider, or that you want to be separate to them, or how much do you want to be in this democratic decision-making process together? Because if you're not in it together, it's it's pointless. But also you can say some things, and then there's what your body language does, and what the space does. You come into a space that we might have designed beautifully, and you are setting up your laptops, and you've got your headphones on, and your whatever you're wearing is can make somebody feel like they're not allowed to approach you, and you can be facing in a particular way, and that isn't welcoming, and it isn't going to aid participation. And these are things that are also can seem tangential to design, but they are curating that experience of what is it like to participate, and how can we give off these messages. So in essence, design isn't always supporting democracy. So there's not enough substance, and there's too much focus on the design and not the actual information. So I'm sure we've all experienced this, where it's all, there's lots of like sliding scales that you can move to say whether you like something or don't like something, and there's lots of little games, but it doesn't necessarily lead to action, and it doesn't lead to meaning. So no amount of design can overcome the fact that there has to be a willingness to listen and act. And without all that, it's just jazz handing. So you need to read and respond to the feedback, even the feedback that you don't want to hear, even the feedback that's really uncomfortable, even the feedback that you think, I don't know how I'm going to act on this. Because, we often say to clients, it's really usual to collect things and think, I don't know what to do. And it's incredibly powerful to say, I am not jumping straight to action. I don't feel like I have to hear every piece of information and immediately know what I'm going to do in response. I'm going to sit with it. I'm going to listen to it. And then together we can think about what action would be. And doing it badly actually makes it super hard for the people coming after you. If there are any practitioners on this call, or even clients, you'll know what it's like to go in to start a project that you think you're starting, and other people, like the community, are 5, 10, 15 years down the line of having these conversations and nothing has happened. And then it just means that you're working against something that is not of your own making, but the trust is reasonably completely eroded. So building back from that is really challenging. And as a baseline, I will always think that on our projects we have to be, if it is not us continuing, how are we leaving the best possible circumstances in order for it to continue? So then the focus has to be on influence to support democracy. So we do a lot of this. It's not for you to read in detail, but thinking about where are the moments of influence across what themes. So in essence, what are we talking about? And being really clear of these things are set, and agreeing this with the client before we step out and go and speak to people, so that you've got the client and the political kind of awareness that these are the conversations, this is the type of information that or questions that you're going to be collecting feedback on. Are you prepared to act on it? And then we're good to go. So yeah, keep saying it, but politicians, clients, design teams, the public sector need to be on board and agree the scope of influence. Otherwise it's completely and entirely meaningless. And that's it. I can see Lucy put her camera on, so I'm speed through. Thank you.